So during COVID, there was a very challenging times for, everybody, honestly, but specifically dairy farmers, because COVID was just the supply chain issues. You had, meat was hard to get a hold. Everything was just supply chain issues. But for dairy farms, because milk is every single day, twice a day the cows getting milked, it just continuously doesn't stop. We had I can't remember exact, but it was millions and millions and millions of pounds of milk that got dumped all across the East Coast. And the way that these co-ops, or the way that they control the amount of milk being produced on these markets, so they can get a handle on how much milk they weren't be dumping milk, because then all the milk that was dumped, technically all the farmers actually had to pay for it through a balancing act. So we got charged X amount of money per hundredweight worth of milk for the milk that got dumped, which doesn't make any sense, but that happened. And so what these co-ops decided to do, like DFA and Agrimart, is they put a base on us. So like in Canada, their dairy industry, or a lot of agriculture, is subsidized by the government. Not in the United States. It's all based off of supply and demand. So what they tried to do was put a base on us. And what they would do is only just pay us for X percentage of milk. So they took the previous year's milk production, and then they would say, okay, you made, hypothetically, I'll just use an example, if you sent 1 million pounds of milk, they're only going to pay you at full market value 85% of that. So then that's what they did. Even though you're sending 1 million pounds of milk, pay you 85%, and then that other 15%, they would only charge you, or only pay you maybe $1, $2 100 pounds, $3 100 pounds, depending if they needed the milk or not. So what that did to a lot of farms is, especially if you're in a growth mode or you needed more milk in order to cash flow everything, it put a lot of financial strain on farmers. And the only way that they would allow to pay you for more milk is that you had to wait until another farm went out of business and you could buy their quote-unquote base. So what that did for us is, because I was in a growth state, we built back, or put a barn addition on, we put up all the feed we needed for our cows. We had enough feed to feed our animals for a year ahead, and we were all set to start milking, to double our milk production. And we were about 3 months away from that when COVID struck. So if it was another 3 months later when COVID hit, or they put this base on us, it would have been a whole different story. So what happened was the following year, we didn't make a single penny out of the new barn, because they didn't pay for it. They wouldn't pay us. And so what they did is, by monetizing a farmer who goes out of business, their base, which then, just a short period of time before that, it meant nothing. So then it was great for these farmers that went out of business. If they had 100,000 pounds of milk they sent every single month, and they sold it for $1, they just got an extra $100,000. Something that was never there before. But the co-op told us, in order for us to financially be able to move forward, we have to buy another farmer's base in order to milk more cows. So that's what we did. We waited until one of our neighbors went out of business. We bought enough base to be able to get paid for all of our milk that we're sending at full value. And so then we started to milk and chug along. And then it wasn't up until 3 years later, not even quite 3 years later, they told us now the base means absolutely nothing because COVID is done, supply chain is fixed, and now there is not enough milk on the market. So now every farm needs to milk more cows. So they're going to take the base off of the farmers, and then you can have as much expansion as possible. So, I mean, any business, it's not easy to just absorb a tremendous amount of money, that was as debt, so when you had an intangible object. So, but primarily small farms, because we don't have the significant cash flow like these larger farms do, it's harder for us to eat, that money. So that was frustrating, and that was the final straw for me to be like, I am done milking cows. Like, I enjoy the industry. I enjoy the life. I enjoy the milking cows. I enjoy it, but I despise how you just don't get paid. Like, it's not like you're trying to get rich. You just want to have a good life, and there's always you don't have control over your destiny, and that's what's the most frustrating part of it. And I can understand why, because the co-op was initially started to help protect the farm, because the farmers don't have enough time to go out and build the market, get the customers, deliver the product, create the product, all these steps, and it's just not possible. So they left it up to people that would be able to do the marketing with the coordinator and all this stuff. But what has happened over the years is it's become very top heavy, in the sense meaning that there's just like more bureaucrats, more people that aren't actually farmers, telling the farmers what to do, essentially. And then you never get to, truly know what you're getting paid for until your milk check comes, because obviously supply and demand, but you don't really ever have any idea. It can fluctuate a couple dollars per hundredweight, month to month to month. So once COVID happened and we worked through that, that was my final straw. Like, you know what? I'm not going to continue trying to grow the dairy farm in a sense where we're just going to try to produce as many pounds of milk as possible and sell it as a commodity. Because to me, it was just foolish to just repeat the same cycle year after year after year. Because COVID happened, we had issue with a bunch of cows, and it's not like, oh, if there's going to be another problem, it's more or less when, and then what are you going to have in place to be able to weather that storm? And that's the thing that farmers are always battling is when the hard times come, how do you get through them? And a lot of farms, you go into debt in order to make it through. Like there was, I can't remember exactly how long ago, maybe 2010, maybe? I don't remember the exact year. But milk prices sat at $10 a 100 pounds for an entire year. That put a lot of farmers out of business when your cost of production of the milk is $18 and you're only getting paid $10 a 100 pounds. The math doesn't add up. And there were some farms I know, like one farm they had to borrow $50,000 just to get through the year, which is crazy. Like you shouldn't be going back. You shouldn't have to go backwards just to stay alive, and you didn't have any control over it. Like you're in hardships by not your own doing, and that's probably the most discouraging thing. Like if you're gonna go through hard times, like it better because I made a mistake or I messed up or something like that. Not so much because somebody else or a group of other people are gonna say, well, we really messed the system up because we've encouraged the promotion of these massive farms where all we want them to do is produce a ton of milk, so then it's just one stop. Things are more efficient, quote unquote. It's not like you have to go to 100 small farms. We can just go to 1 or 2 large farms, pick up the milk and everything. But then what happens is these big farms, if the economics don't work on a small farm, the economics aren't working on a large farm either. If it costs $18 to $21 100 pounds to produce the milk, and you're only getting paid anywhere from $18 to $21 100 pounds, it doesn't matter if you're milking 10,000 cows or if you're milking 100 cows. You still don't make any money at the end of the day. The only difference is you're just cash flowing more. And then obviously, when you are able to make more money, you're able to generate more dollars when the margins are better. So for me, nobody wants to go through hard times, right? It's just who wants to, get yourself kicked in every day and still be going behind? And in the first couple of years of me trying to farm, we just had a couple obstacles. I mean, we're still surviving, we're still moving forward, getting better and better every day. But it just, I just can't rationally say I'm going to spend the next 20, 30 years of my life continuing the same rat race, repeating the same mistakes, living the same 6 months every year for the rest of my days. And I was like, I gotta just break out of this. Gotta do something different. So that's what we did. Through diversification and so on and so forth. Because in order to have a decent life, you gotta be able to control what you get paid for all of your hard efforts every single day.